Hello guys, Alex Fedotoff here. Today we have an amazing guest. We have Joe Valley. He's a co-founder of Quiet Light Brokerage. These guys are helping entrepreneurs to exit their businesses. Today, I just want to learn from Joe directly, kind of like what's working. He sees a lot of data. He sees a lot of businesses, kind of like what's working right now in this like acquisition market. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me. What is going on right now in the acquisitions market from your perspective as you're observing a lot of data?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Everybody's looking for a crystal ball. All I can give you exactly what's happened most recently and maybe a short crystal ball out into the future. So you said we grew pretty rapidly over the years, and I just gave you the stats. We've grown, Quiet Light has grown as a company 55% year over year since 2017. In 2021, it was 85%.
Wow.
And so the big question there, if you just look at those numbers, what's 22 going to be like? Are we going to grow again? And right now, it looks like we're going to hit about 25% year over year growth, but it's still pretty unpredictable for the last half of the year. Depends on a lot of factors. So short term, I think we're still growing, and that is an indication of what's happening in the marketplace. But with let me give you a stat first. So 30% of our transactions in 2021 were sold to aggregators, right? We sell content, SaaS, service, D2C, and Amazon businesses. And just 30% were sold to aggregators. So not a whole lot. So when Thras started to have some struggles, and then the big news broke that they had to lay a whole bunch of people off. I think the rumor is it
Thras or Thrasio? Like
I call it Thras. It's Thras.io. Everybody calls them Thrasio. I go back and forth because when they originally launched, it was Thras.
Oh, okay.
Right? And when they got that first $786 million valuation in that first year where they'd bought 20 Amazon businesses, we'd sold them 8 of them, so 40%.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, but it is Thrasio is what everybody refers to because it's Thras.io. So, when their news broke that they were imploding a little bit, right? They're going to survive.
Yeah.
I'm sure they are. Their lenders are the same lenders of some of the other very big aggregators. And that's their model is that they get lending to buy these businesses. That's Thrasio's model. And some other aggregators. Like I talked to a new aggregator on Thursday of last week, and they've raised $300 million in actual equity. So they've got the money. They don't have to go out to their lender each time. That's the problem with the model when you just go crazy buying stuff that doesn't match. You buy a weapons sort of accessory device brand, and then you buy a children's toy brand. Having those in the same portfolio doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So Thrasio's learning that. Others are as well. But when their news broke that they had to lay off a whole bunch of people, a few of our deals fell apart because the lenders were the same ones behind some of the other big aggregators, and they just tightened it up. They're going to require them to niche down and get very more specific. And so it was a temporary hiccup. People got a little nervous. But I still think we'll be up 25% year over year, which is an indication of the broader market.
Do you think that model is like just buying a lot of businesses in different like niches is not sustainable? Just like buying a bunch of different brands and different
I think it probably is with proper management and segmentation, right? So you could, a company cannot get as large as Thrasio wants to be if it's less likely that they can if all they're going to do is buy nutritional supplement brands, right? Or grilling accessories or garden accessories.
There's a ceiling.
Thrasio wants to get, right. So they could have different divisions within the same company. So this division's doing all outdoor accessories in the garden, and others doing kitchen accessories, and others doing pet-related brands and things of that nature. But initially, some of these aggregators are going to be required to niche down by the lenders. In fact, there's one that already is doing that. They were getting the lending to buy new businesses, and their lenders have said, you've got to niche down. So they were buying all sorts of brands that were topical ointments, supplements, hair products, nail products, and things of that nature. and their lender has looked at their portfolio and worked with the operators of the portfolio and said, look, your female-oriented brands are now your niche. Sell off the rest. These are the only things you're going to buy now.
Oh, wow.
And and they're slowing down their buying a little bit, and just they're being more cautious. They want to make sure they're making great investments given the Thrasio news.
Any specific niches, kind of like, or maybe like evergreen niches that you see kind of like constantly getting like good valuations, constantly, you're more likely to find the potential buyer than, in other niches.
Yeah. I'll give you an example of more likely, and then I'll give you an example of least likely. So anytime we list anything that is pet oriented, we've got, a higher than average multiple and a higher average amount of offers. In 2021, we had an average of about 3.75 offers on every listing.
Wow.
So the pet space has always been very, very hot. There's a lot more people that are getting comfortable now with the supplement space.
What do you mean by not comfortable?
Well, they always folks would say, it's just, there's no barriers to entry, it's very low, there's a lot of competition there. I think buyers are starting to see the benefits of the recurring revenue model in terms of, a physical product brand, or in this case,
so before they wouldn't kind of like appreciate it, or they would still be kind of like cautious?
They didn't appreciate it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they didn't appreciate it, which frustrated me, Alex, because I owned a supplement brand that I sold through Quiet Light back in 2010.
Wow.
Like, these are great. I had 33% recurring revenue. It's great. Yet, a lot of people are just nervous about it for some reason.
Is that because of the regulations? Maybe like regulations, like it's like someone eats it and like gets poisoned, and like then like there's like lawsuit.
I guess it's that, or the fact that when I started my supplement brand, I ordered a case of the supplements. I slapped new labels on them. You can't do it's much harder today than it was back in 2002 when I did this, right? This particular brand. I just relabeled the product and said, okay, let's test this, let's see if it works. And it did. And then I did a TV infomercial and radio.
Oh, wow.
Eventually an e-commerce business that I sold through Quiet Light. So, but the supplement space is also another space that seems to be growing interest. And then honestly, any good solid brand that people are, doing the right things with and building a great business for the future buyer to take over. And the basics there would be thinking around, growth, age of the business, transferability of the business, and documentation of the business. Documentation, you've got to use QuickBooks or Xero or some quality accounting software like that. And if you've got a physical products brand or really anything, do accrual accounting. And I'd suggest they just hire an e-commerce bookkeeper for it. Transferability. So
really, accrual, really you would recommend accrual versus cash?
100%. So if you've got a e-commerce business where you actually, let's say it's not dropship. Yeah. Dropship's great because you're paying for it after, it's being ordered and things of that nature. So that's a little bit of a different animal. But if you're taking that and turning it into your own private brand, if you have $300,000 of inventory on hand, and you're doing cash, and you run a profit and loss statement, you're reducing your discretionary earnings or your net income plus your add backs, which equals discretionary earnings, by $300,000. So if you're getting a 4-time multiple for your business, you just lost $1.2 million.
Yeah, wow, crazy.
That's the important part for you. But the important part for the buyers is they need it on accrual. The intelligent buyers that can stroke a check for that amount of money are going to insist on accrual. And it's not easy to go back and do it. It's going to cost you time and money. So it's best to do it right from the beginning. So do it right from the beginning. And then the second thing is if you're the name and face of the brand, that's the transferability aspect of the business. It's going to be a little harder to transfer because you're the name and face of the brand. You can't say, Joe Valley's the name and face and just going to sell this business and Joe disappears on day one after it's sold. I would have to stick around and support that brand, continue to be the name and face as time goes by, and slowly make me less and less important to that name and of the brand. And then, the growth aspect of the business, really important that you're selling the business while it's growing and there's still growth opportunities. Really, really critically important. If you wait until you're tired, burnout, and the business starts to trend down because of that, your multiple is going to drop.
That's already distressed business, right? Consider distressed?
Exactly. Well, not fully distressed. I mean, if it's just trending down a little bit, let's say it's just trending down, let's just say it trended down 10% over the last 12 months. Or more likely, let's say it trended down 10% each month in the last 6 compared to the previous year. A buyer's just going to take that, they're going to extrapolate it out over the next 6 months, and they're going to seek a discount on the price of your business. And they're going to be correct. So don't ever wait until the business is flatlined or shrinking to sell the business, because your multiple is going to get a big hit. First from a qualified listing broker, second from the client if they're doing that math themselves. So you always want to sell the business while it's growing and while there's good growth opportunities for the buyer. That's going to get them paying a higher multiple for the business. And the last thing is defensibility. You've got to create a business that is defensible in some way, shape, or form. You got to get a trademark if you can. You've got to have lots and lots of positive reviews, solid relationship with a manufacturer, multiple SKUs. You can't have a hero SKU that generates 85% of the revenue. That's going to be a hard business to sell. Because if something goes wrong with that one SKU or the ads that drive revenue for that one SKU, the business is in big trouble. Okay? All right, so pets, supplements, and then all those other things are going to affect any type of brand value. On the downside, like what do I look at for businesses that are always going to trade at a much lower multiple, other than the fact that those 4 things I talked about being really bad? They might be the electronic space. It's going to be a little harder if there's a big fear of obsolescence, right? So over here on my desk, I've got a wireless charging station for my mobile phone. So therefore, what's the future of plug-in charging stations, right? Buyers are going to have a concern about that. So they're going to push back on a multiple a little bit more. You may lose a half a point or a point on the multiple for an electronic-oriented business where there's, and this is the key phrase, fear of obsolescence. I mean, it's going to be obsolete in 12 to 24, 36 months. Okay. So even cell phone cases are sometimes, that type of business is sometimes harder to sell because of the fear of obsolescence, because there's going to be constant new iPhones and whatnot coming out, and your really hot selling cell phone case is not going to be hot anymore because that particular phone model is going to be less and less obsolete as time goes by. For
your clients that like actually sold their businesses, do you see them like heavily like? So you mentioned defensibility. Do you see them like heavily investing in like research and development and like creating new SKUs or improving like existing SKUs, or at some point it's just all about the marketing and like just like and brand and like influence and stuff like that?
It's mostly about the marketing and the brand, right? There's not a lot of money invested in R&D, but launching new SKUs is kind of important, right? So any business that's not launching new SKUs is probably just going to eventually flatline, depending upon how successful the existing SKUs are. So buyers look for new SKUs to be launched on a regular basis. And then
what is there like a sweet spot? Like obviously that probably different like for every company. How many like SKUs, like your successful clients that have successfully scaled and sold, how many SKUs they usually launch like in a given year? Or
yeah, it's definitely different for every client, every buyer, right? Because some buyers are great with 50 SKUs. Some don't want any more than 10. Most are incredibly fearful of one. A single SKU business is a business that's living on a knife's edge. So it's very different depending upon the buyer and even the business model, right? So if you're selling privacy screens, you can have a privacy screen for every size monitor that's out there in existence. So that could be 50 SKUs, and that's fine because of the type of business. But in other cases, if you've got 50 SKUs of t-shirts because they're different colors and designs, then you've got another, 5 different sizes for each of them. And it just gets, extrapolated out. Now you've got 250 SKUs. If you got 1,500 SKUs, you're probably a drop ship model or selling directly from manufacturers with lots and lots of different type of products inside of one, sort of overall umbrella brand. And that's okay too in some situations, but not every buyer is going to want that. It's simply too much for them to manage. You could prove to them that it's not by being incredibly organized and launching new SKUs and have them all be profitable. But it's going to depend greatly on the buyer.
Hey guys, people have been asking me how we scale to multiple 6 figures or even 7 figures per month without getting shut down on Facebook. And we have a very sophisticated solution for this that I want to share with you, but it's just like too valuable to give away for free. So if you guys want this solution, just book a call with one of my team members and we'll show you exactly what it is and how it works, and we'll see if that's a good fit for you and for your business. So just book a call with my team member. We'll share it with you so you can scale your business to multiple 6 figures or even 7 figures per month without getting shut down on Facebook, without having inconsistency, and with high profitability. So just book a call with my team and I'll see you there. Like, what is the breakdown currently for the buyers? Like, are these usually like, you mentioned there was like a substantial part of them are aggregators, like, I don't know, private equity firms, like just private buyers, like people from like other industries, like investors. I know like some real estate investors, like, or some people that have like brick and mortar businesses, they would just like buy. I know a few people that did that, that would buy e-commerce businesses just because, I don't know, they just want like another, like they want to diversify. So what's that looking like?
They're tired of living in Michigan and they want to move to Florida with you down in Miami. That's what they're tired. That's why they're getting.
I don't know. Like moving to Florida is like. I mean, I think that's just natural. That just like at some point of life, it's just like it's inevitable.
Just going south anywhere, right? I did the same thing. I grew up in Maine, but I live in North Carolina because it's just too cold up north.
Yeah.
So as far as the buyers, if we just look at our portfolio of buyers. In the last 12 months, 30% were to aggregators, which could be considered private equity. Maybe it'd be bumped up to 35 to 40 with other private equity buyers for some of the largest businesses. And so that means 60% are individual buyers that are, just mom and dad, buying a business, or somebody recently sold their business and excited about, jumping into another one, and they know it's easier to buy and then build a business versus starting one up from scratch. Increases their odds of success if it's already successful. A lot of folks that are leaving the corporate world that are being downsized or just tired of working 60 hours a week for somebody else, want to work from home in jeans and a t-shirt type of thing. But it's really split 60-40, 60 being individual people, 40% being, let's call it, institutional.
And majority of the deals are still like, so there was like a big, like, after COVID hit, like the SBA loans, like the economy, like, the Fed like just was pushing a lot of those like small business loans. Is that still primarily the source of funding, the SBA loans?
If there's funding involved at all, yeah, it would be SBA loans for individual buyers. Yeah, if there's funding, involved at all. If there's no funding, they're paying cash, or at least 75% cash, and working out some type of earnout or stability payment or something like that, a seller note, with the seller.
So you see a lot of the deals are actually being like cash transactions.
Yeah, the majority. Yeah, for sure. The SBA deals are small. I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but it's probably less than 15%. And often it's because the businesses that are being sold may not qualify for an SBA loan. They haven't been around for 3 years. They don't have an individual tax return just for that business. It's a key thing, right? So if you want to expose yourself to as many buyers as possible, one LLC, one brand. Otherwise, you've got commingling. You can sell a business with commingled tax returns, but it's a pain. You have to get them separated out, to the SBA's guidance, and it takes time and money. But when you're ready to sell, sometimes people don't want to do that.
Wow, that's such a good point. Like some consideration for for entrepreneurs that want to sell, maybe not even now, like maybe in like a few years from now, eventually. to have it done like right, like from now, like not waiting until like you're already selling, and now there are so many things that need to be done in terms of like just making business more attractive.
Absolutely. Look, if you want to sell your business, eventually, right now, when you start your business, you're just bootstrapped it. I don't want you thinking about your exit unless it's your second or third business that you started. If it's a brand new business, people are just trying to keep the wheels on the bus, right? And get cash flow positive and not have to dip into savings to buy more product or hire more people. But eventually, you should be setting an exit goal, getting training, learning how to exit your business, and reverse engineering a path to that. Because most of the money you're going to make from running your business is going to come the day that you sell it. It's not from the cash flow that you generate by operating the business. It's going to come from the day that you sell it.
Very, very, yeah, 100%. So there is like type of acquisitions that is kind of like more strategic, right? Like when let's say you have like a pet business, and then there's like a big like private equity firm that owns like a lot of pet businesses, or maybe like a PetSmart or whatever, like buys that business. Do you see kind of like is that competitive to what you guys do? Because you have your own like pool of potential buyers versus these type of transactions, or do you also refer some of your clients, for instance, to more like strategic like acquirers?
Yeah, sometimes we do create a strategic buyer list, and we'll go out after them because it's a good opportunity to get the business sold. In the last 12 months, the largest transaction that we had was $25 million. We've got a couple coming up. And one's going to be 50 million, one's going to be about 70 million. And so the larger ones like that, odds are they're still going to be sold to our list. The one for 25 million we had two at the 25 million range sold to our list directly. The difference between investment banking firms and our firm is that investment banking firms have to develop a list each time they have a new client, because they go out and look for buyers for that. We've got the buyers on our list already in most situations, but as we grow in terms of deal size, we've got to go out a little bit more and do that same thing. Some of the buyers are definitely going to be on our list. I'm very confident that $50 million transaction and that $70 million transaction, those buyers are on our list because I know the business models and I know who's going to buy it. But in some situations, we do go out and create a list just like the investment banking folks, and we will go after those specific strategic buyers because they'll pay a higher multiple in most situations, especially in the pet space. I've got a friend down here in Charlotte, he's doing $34 million in revenue, maybe
nice.
15% discretionary earnings, but he's going to have a 9-figure exit because it's a very specific recurring revenue business in the pet niche. He's going to have a 9-figure.
Very nice. How many years he's been building that business?
8 or 9 at this point. I met him first in 2016, and he just raised 25 million back then. So that's 6 years. Oh,
he raised 25 million to kind of like to grow that business?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But that one and others, he had a portfolio of, and this is the thing. So he kept buying things that were not related to each other. And now he's like, he saw somebody else exit the pet space for 180 million. He's like, okay, all of my, everything. And it was the same type of model and the same type of margin and everything. And somebody sold for 180 million. And so what he's doing is he's peeling off all of the other brands that are not related to the pet business, and it is just selling the pet business as well. So really he's selling everything, but he's got to sell the non-related businesses off individually, so he can just sell the pet-related business directly. And he's already working towards that. But before the end of the summer, he'll have a $100 million exit.
Wow. And after that, it's Florida, Miami, and like a good life.
Nope.
No?
He's young. After that, he's going to start a family office and do even more. Start buying and building even more. Yeah.
So let's say someone like this, right? Like someone who sells a business for like $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, versus someone who's building the business like that will sell, you said like for like 9 figures. Like what? And let's say these guys like kind of like more maybe on a personal level or like know them better. What's the difference between these people in terms of the thinking, the major differences from your perspective?
Oftentimes it's the people that are high performers become very comfortable with routines and the mundane, because that's the problem with the I don't want to say average entrepreneur, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're already successful. Sometimes you become bored, right? You become bored and you start to look at the next project,
Shiny object.
Shiny object syndrome, exactly. The people that are really, really, truly financially incredibly successful is because they can focus on something and do the same basic things every day. It's like an elite athlete. Some of the training is, and then minor tweaks, but the same basic training you're doing all of the time, and then you tweak things here and there instead of the big changes that and I'll say myself as an average entrepreneur, you're like, okay, I'm bored. I need to move on. That's why I sold my last e-commerce business. I was bored. I was working 20 hours a week. It was a great business, but I was bored. And so I sold it. And I could have taken it to much higher levels, but that's not me. I was capable of taking it from one to a certain level. And I was not, there's a perfect example. There's somebody that we just sold a business for him. It was one of those $25 million businesses. He knew he was capable of taking the revenue of that business from 1 to 10 million. Or 0 to 10 million. It's exactly what he did. He also knew that the business had the ability to be taken to $100 million. He just knew he wasn't the person to do that. He didn't enjoy, managing lots of people and dealing with different warehouse transactions and, all of the things that you need to have in order to be doing $100 million in revenue. That was not his cup of tea. So he sold, he sold 75% of it, and he rolled 25% into the new co that will be able to take it to 100 million. So he's still going to have benefits from what he did. And eventually there's going to be an incredibly large exit that will be larger than the one he just had. But he's not the one at the helm doing that anymore. He's just a strategic advisor for them. I'd say the average age of the businesses we sell might be 3.5, 4 years. They're not grinding it out for a decade and then selling, unless they're doing, and the ones that we do that for, they're, 5 years plus. The $50 million one that's coming up, I know, is 5 years. I think the $75 million one's going to be like 7 years in terms of age.
And have you seen, let's say, these most successful businesses, for instance, are there usually one founder, 2 founders, 3 founders?
Most of them do start off as a solo entrepreneur, right? And then they eventually grow if they can get a COO as that integrator. That makes a huge difference, right? So the CEO of Facebook just resigned, right?
Sheryl.
Think of her name.
Sheryl Sandberg.
Yes, exactly. She just resigned. She's an amazing COO. And, they've grown incredibly since she joined in 2008, I think. So, but Zuckerberg didn't start out with that. He started out as a solopreneur. And most people start that way. When you can afford it, still pay yourself, and you're not grinding it out just, with duct tape anymore, keeping the wheels on the bus, having somebody like that come on board can help you be that visionary and think about the future of the business while other people are, you come up with the ideas, the visionary and the COO is implementing it, in a sense.
Yeah, if you can tell more about your book, so we'll link to the book. So you have this book for entrepreneurs?
Yeah. It's called the Entrepreneur's Playbook, and I'm picking it up because you just mentioned EOS, and Gino Wickman is on the cover of the book. And he says the Entrepreneur's Playbook is a must-read for online entrepreneurs. I wrote it, after a decade of doing what I do as an advisor, as a partner at Quiet Light. We've sold more than $500 million in transactions. Wow. I've personally built, bought, and sold over 6 businesses myself. And we've got a team of 15 advisors now, and we see a lot of transactions. And, people call for valuations when they're brave enough. More often than not, they're not brave enough. But when they're brave enough, they fill out the form online at quietlight.com and get a valuation for their business. And then they have a call with an advisor. That call is like drinking through a fire hose. There's so much information that you've got to absorb. And sometimes you're ready to sell your business, and sometimes you're not. I prefer that people get a valuation when they're not. But rather than drink from the fire hose,
getting a valuation when you are not,
when you're not ready to sell, you've got to, look. So the premise of the book is that you want to set an exit goal and reverse engineer a path to that. So you want to sell your business for $5 million.
Yeah.
Okay. How close or how far you are from that are you? Well, the only way to find out is to get a valuation. So that way you know how close or how far you are. And on top of that, you've got an expert telling you the strengths and weaknesses of your business. You know, the growth, the risk, the transferability, the documentation, all of those things. That way you know what levers to push or pull to accelerate your growth to that 5 million. And also help you as an entrepreneur emotionally stick to what you've got to stick to, like the elite athletes, in order to achieve that goal, not get bored, shiny object syndrome. Because you've got to focus on that, because you're going to have hurdles and roadblocks and potholes, as we all have as entrepreneurs. And they come in the form of bad days, weeks, months, and sometimes, unfortunately, bad years. But if you've got that goal in mind and you're marching towards it because you know where you are today, you're more likely to succeed. The problem I discovered over the last decade is that people can't absorb all of the information on phone calls. And I found myself repeating the same thing over and over again. So I wrote it down, right? And I wrote it down, I feel like, you know, Alex, in a sense that it's conversational. There's lots of stories. There's lots of examples. There's lots of data and information and things for you to absorb. And hopefully, you know, a lot of light bulbs are going to go off. But it's, you know, I've gotten some amazing reviews on Amazon where people talk about it. Like, it's like sitting across from me having a beer at a pub, that they're able to absorb the information. It's not your typical exit planning book. It's more about training for the largest financial event in your life, which is the sale of your business.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we'll link up the book, guys. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today. Very, very cool insights. You know, I think like kind of like educating entrepreneurs on this, like, because a lot of people don't even know I don't know. Probably, I just kind of like said about the emotion that would go through like someone's like brain when they get a valuation on their business. Because it's kind of like, it's like a first date, you know, it's like, you don't know, like, what if that valuation too low, or what if that valuation, like, you know, like, so maybe even like when feeling that form, they have these like emotions, like, what it
Absolutely. But it's so enlightening. I do it every year for Quiet Light. Hire an outside firm to give me a valuation of Quiet Light.
Wow.
We have people calling us all the time wanting to buy Quiet Light. We say no every time. We're going to continue to say no for the next decade. But we always want to know what it's worth. Always.
What?
It just makes it easier when you have a terrible day, week, month, or year. Like, okay, my business is worth X. I'm all right. And the larger your business gets, the larger multiple you fetch as well, because the business is more established and less risk. Therefore, lower risk equals higher multiple.
Would you say 10 million is kind of like a benchmark? Let's say revenue above like 10 million, where it's like the multiples increase?
No, the multiples start to increase, you know, above, I'd say $400,000 or $500,000 in discretionary earnings. When you get to $1 million, it jumps again. And then, yes, if you're doing 10 million in revenue, you might be doing, you know, 1.5 to 3 million in discretionary earnings, depending upon the model of the business, and you're going to jump again for sure.
Cool. Joe, thank you so much for educating like entrepreneurs on this. Helping them like getting paid for all the effort they put building businesses, and great conversation. We'll link your like LinkedIn, or what's the best channel to get in touch with you?
They can reach out at let's say joe@quietlight.com.
Okay.
Email right there. Real simple.
Cool.
Or just go to quietlight.com, and if you don't know what your business is worth, go to quietlight.com/sell. Fill out the valuation form. It's the basic step. It's free, right? It's free. And everybody on the team is an entrepreneur. We've all built, bought, and sold our own online businesses. So you'd be talking to somebody that's the same mindset. And it's not a sales call. It's an education call.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Thank you everyone for watching. See you in the next video.